90% of podcasts don't make it past 20 episodes. That's because starting your podcast is very easy, but most people complicate the process and end up giving up. And even when they do start, they make the process so complicated, they can't maintain the momentum and keep consistent. But if you're watching this video, that's not going to be you. In this video, I'll be going into the technical parts from start to finish of making a podcast. Meaning, how do you go from having the desire to have a podcast to having something people can listen to on their devices, on their phones, from anywhere in the world, from a technical aspect. Welcome, I'm Paul, if you're new to this channel, and I help coaches, consultants, and business owners to attract and convert high-ticket clients by using a podcast. Why start a podcast in the first place? I believe it's the last free space on the internet. They can kick you off every platform except your podcast. Once you have a way to broadcast it, you always have it. And it's become a really rich space to find a diversity of views. So you should start a podcast because it is a free way to reach new people with your message, and because podcasting is a great way to increase the time people spend with your brand, making them more likely to want to work with you because now they know, like, and trust you. Anyway, technically speaking, what is a podcast? It used to be just audio, just an MP3 file stored on a server somewhere that people can access with a special URL called an RSS feed. Nowadays, instead of using a server, you can use a podcast host. Spotify's one, so is Buzzsprout, Libsyn, Captivate, and this goes on. And all the complication of making that RSS feed is handled by the host. Instead of having to figure out how to turn this RSS feed into your favorite show, it's all abstracted away into a podcast player. Spotify is one again, and so is Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and YouTube now, actually. And of course, it's 2025, video has joined the mix, and so YouTube is now a major player in the podcast space. They can read your RSS feeds, but if you want to create your podcast on YouTube, you'd have to do it with only video. Audio podcasts are still great. There's still a ton of popular audio-only podcasts out there. Word of mouth is the major way that podcasts grow. And even though we have video, that has not changed. But the ability to make people aware of your show much faster than ever before is the reason why you need to be doing video for your podcast as well as audio, especially if you're trying to attract and convert new listeners into clients. Now that we've identified why you start your podcast and what a podcast really is, let's dive into the meat of the matter and look at how we actually make the podcast the right way. This process can be complicated if you allow it to be, but I'm going to give you the tools and the psychology to move through this process as quickly and smoothly as possible. If you have any questions I didn't address, leave them down in the comments below and I'll answer them. So the first thing we're going to do is everybody's favorite thing, securing the right equipment. Before people can hear your personality and feel your vibes, they have to be able to hear and see you. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine that there are two podcasts talking about the same exact thing. Now, one has great audio, great video, and the other one has terrible audio and terrible video. It doesn't matter if you have the best personality in the world. If you are the one with terrible audio and terrible video, you're not going to get your podcast off the ground. Let's make audio and video quality be the foundation which you build your podcast empire upon. First things first is a microphone. You want to avoid condenser and omnidirectional microphones. Those are great if you're in a studio where audio quality is perfectly pristine, but if you're at home, you don't have a home studio, then you want to use a unidirectional mic or a dynamic microphone at all times. Now, how that works is it picks up the best audio when you're speaking directly in front of it. So if you're behind it, if you're somewhere else in the room, it will not pick up that audio as much as what's in front. It's going to prioritize what's being said right here. And so this one is a good one. I put the information on the screen for this. The top of the line microphone is going to be the Shure SM7B. You see that on so many podcasts right now, and that is for a reason. They're excellent quality microphones, but they are still great microphones for a lower price point. I'll put all the information down below in the description. If you have a co-host right beside you, and you're not going after remote interviews, you also want to get them on microphone, and then you have to use something like a interface that you plug both microphones into, and you can record the conversation you guys are having. Now, one that we have, and we recommend, it is the Rodecaster Pro. There, you can plug in up to 4 microphones if you have 4 guests, but we're going for a very simple setup. So definitely have one microphone, and you're most likely going to be doing remote interviews. If you're watching this video and you are a business owner or a coach trying to build up your authority and talk to your audience, you're going to want to prioritize having remote interviews, and I'll tell you why. So that input, that is called an XLR, a micro XLR input. If you want to have something like that, you're going to also want to get an interface which you can plug it into, and that will power this device. If not, go for a dynamic microphone which you can plug directly into your computer by USB-C. The next thing is going to be headphones. You want to have a headphone so you can hear the guest speaking without it coming out of the speakers and you accidentally picking it up in the microphone. The one I recommend is there, the Sony. It does a very good job. We use it for our editing as well. It really picks up all the nuances of the audio. If you don't want to get an expensive pair of headphones, you can use AirPods. Cameras. Next thing we're going to talk about are cameras. Camera quality is important, yes, but we don't overcomplicate it. There are lots of podcasts that we work with who have webcams. 4K webcams get the job done. 4K webcams pass the bar of the minimum requirements to have good video quality. There are some webcams that we recommend. There's one that is getting excellent reviews and the camera quality is looking much more superb than any other webcam on the market. It's this one right here, so definitely check that out. If you want to take your video game up another notch, you can opt for a DSLR camera like what I'm using right now. And this DSLR camera is the Sony FX30. It records in 4K on the device. If you plug it into your computer via USB-C, you can record up to 1080p, which is excellent quality for your calls with your guests. But if you're going to be recording solo episodes, that's you talking directly to the audience like we are right now, just record it directly onto the camera and you recorded excellent 4K quality. There are settings that you need to consider with any DSLR camera, so you can just pick one up and begin working with it. So for a setup of this size, the camera and the lens can easily bring you up to $3,000. So be very mindful of that. In most cases, for most purposes, going for a webcam is more than enough in terms of video quality to get the job done and get you clients on demand. Once you feel like, okay, I want to take it up a notch, then you have the revenue to invest in your production, definitely opt for a DSLR camera. The Sony ZV-E10 is also good, lower quality and lower capabilities than this FX30. And then a step up from the FX30 is the FX3, which is going to run you 3K, almost 4K for that camera alone, not including the lens. As you can tell, I'm only speaking about recording remotely. So you as a host talking to a remote guest or here by yourself with the camera. That's because for most coaches and consultants, that is the setup they're going to go for because they're busy, they have meetings, they have clients they want to deliver to. They want something that's very simple to set up and get going. We don't have time to have studios. That is for the future. If you want me to talk about that in more detail, multiple cameras, all that stuff, building a set, I can go into that in a future video. But for now, we're talking about remote recording for podcasts via recording software. The next thing is lighting. A simple desk light can do if you're just keeping it very simple, or you can recommend one. Being able to just get up and start recording is very important for a coach or consultant because you never know when either inspiration is going to strike or when you're going to actually have the time to sit down and record. And so lighting is going to play a very big part in that. You're going to want a light that actually gets the job done and makes you look consistent, whether it's night or day. You can probably tell it's night. I'm using a stepped down version of lighting. I'm using the GVM 3-pack RGB light. You want to get at least 2-point lighting system. Put one light 45 degrees away from your face. That's your fill light. Another light could just be there to fill in the shadows, and you can then determine what angle you want it, just to fill in some of those shadows. Actually, let me show you what it looks like. I'm going to turn the lights off now, and you can get to see how it works. And I'm going to turn them on one by one, starting with my key light. Okay, my key light is on. You can see now there's also a shadow on this side of my face. I'm going to now turn on the fill light. Okay, and you can see some starting to fill in some of those shadows here in my face, even more even, not like brooding like the Dark Knight. And finally, I'm going to turn on the backlight. You can see the light on this side, and it's creating some separation there from the backdrop. And that's 3-point lighting. You only need to have these two really to have very good light coverage as you go through. You don't need a complicated setup. You can just have one simple desk light here that's bright enough to illuminate you and give you a little shadow space so there's some depth to your face. Yeah, but that's all you really need. And then you can take that up a notch again by using a more complicated setup, having something like an aperture light here that with a soft box that gives you very good coverage, and also it's bright enough so that it doesn't matter if you're filming at night or the day, you're going to look the same no matter what. And finally, backdrop. This one's often overlooked, especially for people doing remote interviews or setups like this, because they just don't think it's that much of a priority. They probably just have a blank wall or something, but it's really viable real estate because you get an opportunity to showcase other things about you. You could showcase your qualifications, you could showcase bits of your personality, you could showcase things that are relevant to what you do and who you are. If you look at Gary Vee's backdrop, you could see all the things that he has did at making who he is. And I also like the hosts, Sean Puri and Sam Parr. They're My First Million backdrop. Each of them is really unique. Well, you can look at mine as well. You know, I have my One Piece figurines there. I have my anime books there. Also a lot of books that I am reading right now and have read before. And originally there was like my PlayStation 5, but it's down to I'm playing that with my daughter. So yeah, you really have a lot of options, and with how you can display things that like really make you who you are and talk about your personality without you actually saying it. It's just there as a reflection of yourself. So utilize your backdrop as much as you can. It'll become a fixture in your videos. Let's move on to actually recording conversations. I'm talking about the recording platform. Now, the one that we recommend, very simple and straightforward, is Riverside. Since Riverside came on the scene, there have been multiple competitors that have also come up and raised their standard of what they do. But why we like Riverside is you're able to record locally. And that works very well for redundancy. And that works very well for maintaining your video and audio quality, even when you have a spotty internet connection. Like if you're using Zoom, for example, if you have a moment where your internet cuts out, that call is done. Like that video is done. Like you're cooked at that point. But if you have something like Riverside, you can be talking, you can drop, the information is still being recorded locally on your hard drive. At the end of the conversations, all uploaded to the cloud, and then you have the uninterrupted conversation there. And it also allows you to record up to 4K your conversations as well. So very versatile there. And if you want a code for Riverside, it's down in the description below. You can get a discount there. And that's using my affiliate code. I get a little commission off of that. Anyways, moving on to setting up your podcast itself, let's briefly talk about all the costs associated with the podcast. Now, I've already spoken about equipment, but it does not stop there. There are one-time payments you need to make, and there are also ongoing subscriptions you need to have. Let's go through them right now. One is going to be your podcast host, meaning the application that's going to be holding on to all of your files, your MP3 files, your MP4 files, and serving them out to the different podcast destinations. The destinations like Apple, Amazon Music, Spotify, Overcast, etc. Those are all free destinations, but you would have to pay for that server, that host. It's going to be serving the RSS feed up for everyone to access. The prices vary. The one that we use all of the time is Libsyn, but there's also Captivate. And Captivate specifically is one that we are loving because it allows you to run dynamic ads. Dynamic ads are advertisements which you can record a separate audio track, which would be an advertisement, which you can then place dynamically in your back catalog. Now, let's say, for example, you've launched a new promotion and people are still consuming all their episodes, they're binging all their episodes all the way back from when you started it in 2024. You can then dynamically go back and insert that new ad for your new promotion into all of those old episodes so that they don't miss out as they're consuming in the old catalog. And that's actually how we recommend you go about putting in your ads dynamically. You don't want to bake them in because that means that people listening to an old episode with an old baked in ad will be trying to join that promotion or that offer that you have that maybe doesn't exist anymore, maybe has changed a great deal. So put your ads in dynamically, and you do that by using a host like Captivate. The next thing is going to be your recording software. In the last section I mentioned Riverside. There's a cost associated with that, a monthly subscription to use Riverside. Also, editing software. There is free audio editing software, but there's also paid audio editing software, and there's definitely a lot of paid video editing softwares. One that we recommend is Adobe Premiere Pro. That's what we use internally for our clients. And we recommend Adobe Audition as well. So you can pay for one subscription to the Adobe Creative Cloud, and that will give you access to all the applications that they have there, which includes Adobe Photoshop for making thumbnails, Premiere Pro for editing video, and Audition for editing audio. Music, that's one thing you'd have to pay for as well. You can, and we'll talk about it in the next section, but that's a cost you have to consider. And finally, design services. You may want, if you want to hire a designer to design your artwork, which we'll talk about in the next section, or use one of the tools like Canva, there's a subscription involved with that. So just be mindful. So we are going to set up our podcast, and what we're going to be using in this example is going to be Spotify. It is free. to use Spotify as a host, there are benefits to doing that. Spotify would then become a part owner of your content. So if you don't want that, definitely use one of the paid hosts like Libsyn or Captivate, and that will give you 100% control over your podcast and all that comes with it. But in this case, we're going to use Spotify because it's very quick and simple to set up. And so you're going to want to go to this URL right here, and then you'll see this page on Spotify for creators. You hit get started. You would say you want to start a new podcast, and then you sign up for your own account. I have my own account here, but once you have your own account, you can put your information in about the podcast, meaning the show name, your description, the creator name, your show art, which we'll talk about in the next section, and your categories, whether it's going to be clean or explicit. Okay, you can then create your own profile page and put in all of your additional information for your additional platforms, and this will all show up on your podcast in the podcast there on Spotify. Once you hit save, you will take into this page here where you go to episodes and you'll begin adding your individual episodes. So we'll get into that real quick. Let's just go back real quick here. You want to nail your podcast name. You want to be as clear as you can about what the podcast is about. So don't try to be clever, try to be clear. If you can identify who it's for and what value you're going to provide, what your qualifications are, put that in the description, and you can use those keywords as well you want when they're searching for to find your podcast. Definitely go for that. As you can see, my podcast name is titled Listens to Clients. It's very clear about what the podcast is about, what we do. So definitely up for that clarity. Don't just go for a name because it sounds fun. I mean, you can if you want. I would encourage you to go for something that's very, very clear. You will thank me in the long run. We've purchased our host, which in this case is going to be Spotify, and we're filling our information in. We're going to pause that. Are we going to start recording our episodes? Maybe you already have your guests lined up, or you're going to do some solo episodes. Let's actually begin the process of now determining how best to record an episode. We want to ensure that we are recording as much clean audio, meaning audio that doesn't have any noise going into the recording process. Because the cleaner the audio is going in, is the less audio processing you have to do after you've recorded the episode. And there's no guarantee that you can solve those audio issues. So the best thing that you can do is to ensure that your audio going in is as clean as possible. And how we do that is, one, use headphones, have your guests use headphones as well. If you can, you also want to make sure that you are plugged in via Ethernet cord to the internet and not using Wi-Fi, because the Wi-Fi can be unstable sometimes, and that will affect your call's quality. Remember, the raw side so there is that redundancy with recording locally, but try to get on an Ethernet connection if you can. If not, we'll move forward. If you're doing any form of background activity that could interrupt or could drain some of your bandwidth, maybe you're using Google Sync to upload files, or Dropbox or antivirus software, ensure none of those are running when you're doing your recording, so that those aren't siphoning necessary bandwidth for your conversation, so it can be as clean as possible. A lot of times when you're recording in any form of software, you have to double check that your microphone, your specific microphone, one you want to use, is selected, your headphones are selected, your camera is selected before you actually start recording. You don't want to be in the middle of a conversation and realize that the wrong microphone is selected and so the audio is trash. So before you start recording, make sure that the correct microphone is selected as input, correct speakers, which would be your headphones, and the correct camera, not your webcam on your laptop, but maybe the one that you've purchased or your DSLR. Those are ones that are selected. Turn off any fans, or if the AC is too loud, turn it down. If your room light has a hum, which mine does, make sure that your light is off, so you're not getting that in the audio. You're not having any hummings or hissing or any form of latent noise coming in to your space. There's certain things that can't be helped. I'm not telling you to put up studio audio panels or to put down towels. We don't have time for that. And but there are things that we can do in post just to ensure a quality as smooth as possible. But do what you can, all right? When you're talking to the microphone, make sure it's not up on your mouth like this. It's a little bit further away, about 8 inches away from your mouth. Get a pop filter as well if you do a lot of popping. And once you have all that taken care of, your phone's on side, it's not going to ring in the call or vibrate, then you can go ahead and begin recording and enjoy that conversation. Now that you've recorded your episodes, let's move on to the next thing you want to do, which is to secure your music. Especially for the audio part of your podcast, music plays a very big role in setting up the mood and atmosphere for your show. And so we definitely recommend that you have music there at the intro of your podcast that brings people into the atmosphere of what your show is going to be about and the vibe of your show. And also you want to have sound effects, whether that be for transitionary sounds. Well, let's touch on licenses for a second. You want to get music that you can purchase and own the license for in perpetuity, rather than using royalty-based music like what you hear in Spotify from artists. You don't want to take those and use those on your podcast, because that would mean that you're gonna have to pay every single time someone streams your podcast. You don't want that. You want to use a service which you can get the license for music and own that in perpetuity, whether that be for the lifetime or maybe you renew that license every year, but you want to have a service, you want to pay for a service that gives you that level of ownership. One service we recommend for that is Pond5. Use Pond5, go there, identify a vibe and a genre that fits your show, get that and begin to use that in your show's edit. Let's move on now to your podcast artwork. Well, if you looked at Spotify, you would see that your podcast artwork is very important. It is what you use to represent your show in everything on YouTube, on Spotify, the host, and it gets pushed from Spotify to all their devices. So on Apple, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, they'll all be using your artwork to identify your show. And so you're going to want to create something that's a square, that's 3000 by 3000 pixels. Start with that large size, and because different services may want a smaller size, we can always start with that large one and work your way down, and then we'll begin to populate everything. Now you can use a tool like Canva to design it if you want to do it yourself. I designed my artwork in Canva, and then I moved it into Photoshop to do additional polishing, and you can see the difference and what I think is more refined in Photoshop. You can also use a service like Upwork or Fiverr or 99 Designs or Design Crowd to give you different variations for an artwork, or you can just hire a professional designer to make it for you. I definitely recommend you do something that is quick and cheap to start. You can always upgrade your artwork and refine your artwork in the future as your podcast has gotten more notoriety and traction. But one thing you need to ensure is that, as I have been saying, is to be clear, not clever, clear in what your podcast is going to be about. Since you are a coach or a consultant or business owner, put your face on the artwork somewhere to increase your personal brand awareness. You also can incorporate aspects of your brand colors, your brand fonts, your brand emotions, provide that information to the designers on whichever platform they are on, have them give you 3 variations of what you can use, and then you pick the best one. We're now going to do a few more things, edit our episodes, sign up for YouTube, and then begin to publish those episodes. And that will be the final step, which will get it out into every person's device, YouTube channel, everything. So let's go through now with signing up for YouTube. What you want to do first is to create your YouTube channel and then go to YouTube Studio. So what I've done, I've done that already, and this is now my YouTube Studio. You're going to want to go to create and then go to new podcast. When you go to new podcast, create a new podcast. This is where you take everything you've already been done on Spotify and put it here. So you put your title here, you put your description here, you put your artwork here, ensure the visibility is public, and you can leave it as is, and then go ahead and hit create. And that's it. You now have your podcast and it's public. So what that means is when you go to content and you go to podcast, you'll now see a podcast tab and you'll now see your podcast here. So look at all of my videos. As you add your videos that you've recorded and edited, they will show up here. Everything else that you do for a regular video will be the same, meaning you still need to do a thumbnail, title, and description for your episodes. You can basically take the same descriptions you've done here and apply it to the same thing you do on Spotify as you create a new episode. This is my podcast on YouTube. This is my podcast on Spotify. All this, the same stuff I'm putting on both. So you can do the same there. What that would look like is you create a video. Let us say I'm uploading a new video. When you upload a new video, you're going to see a screen like this. And all you do is scroll down here to playlists. add Listens to Clients as a place. As you can see here, podcast, it will then make it into a podcast, which will then be available on YouTube Music as well as regular YouTube. So you now have your YouTube channel set up, title, description, artwork already there. Everything is ready for the episodes, or everything is waiting. It's excited to receive your episodes to begin sending it out to the world. Let's move on to editing your episodes. I'm not going to jump into how to edit your videos technically. I am going to say that I'm going to introduce you some editing jargons that you need to know. So let's jump in real quickly. So the workflow that we recommend, from Riverside, you're going to get 2 audio files and 2 video files. 1 video and 1 audio file for you as a host, 1 video, 1 audio file for the guest. You're going to take all 4 of those files and put them into your video editing software. In this case, we use Adobe Premiere Pro. You can also use Descript or anything else that you feel comfortable with. The video editing is going to be a lot less stringent than your audio editing. That's because people can be more tolerant of audio mistakes. Maybe you say, I'm a bit too much or something happens there. They're going to be more tolerant of it. And especially they're going to be more aware of too many cuts. Whereas you can hide all the cuts in the audio using good audio editing techniques. You can hide a lot of the cuts. It sounds pristine, it sounds perfect. With audio, because you can't see, you can see all the different glitching and cutting and stuff as you do on video. So we're not going to edit our video as much as we would our audio. That's why we start with doing the video edit first. We take the audio from the completed video edit, we put it into our audio editing software, edit it even more, and then we add in our music, add in our intros and our outros, export that finished audio now, and that goes onto all the audio platforms, and then export that video that you have now when you edited, and that goes onto the video platform, that goes onto YouTube. For the most part, to keep it very simple, you're going to be using jump cuts, meaning you're going to be looking for areas where there are. Let me just show you. Can I just show you real quick? Yeah, just real quickly. I'm going to show you how to do a cut in Premiere Pro. So you may have an issue where your guest gets up to leave, or you said, I'm a bit too much times, or there's a tangent that you went down you just want to remove. You want to identify where the start of it is. And you're going to put a cut there, insert cut. There's a cut tool right here. This is razor. And you can just do that. As you can see there, you now have 2 separate things. There's one here, and then you want to come here and insert the other cut. Same thing with the razor tool, boom. And then you highlight that piece in the middle and you hit delete. Or you highlight it again and do shift delete, and that does a ripple delete. So what we've just created here is a jump cut. If you look at it,
personal brand.
You can see how it just jumps from one to the other thing. That's called a jump cut. That's the most basic cut you're going to be doing, and it's going to be very effective for you for a long while. So just be mindful of that. Edit. And then once you have that, take that audio from that completed interview, you're going to use that same technique to do jump cuts to edit that audio. Then you're going to export that audio from the audio editing software as an MP3 file. You're going to export the video as an MP4 file. And then you're going to upload now that video file onto YouTube. And you're going to have to now create a thumbnail you create a thumbnail in Canva or Photoshop as you did the artwork. And we can have a whole video about thumbnails. So we won't get into it in this video, but for the purpose of the technical aspects, create a thumbnail that matches your video that is 1280 by 720 in size. Upload that with your video to YouTube. Remember to go down to the playlist section and select the podcast as a playlist, and then hit publish when everything is uploaded and checked and processed to the fullest quality, maximum HD, which would be 1080p. Publish that, and your podcast is now live on YouTube Music. Then you're going to take that audio file and put that MP3 file onto Spotify. And when it's done uploading, you hit publish, and then it's available on Spotify. Now we have a further step to do now to get that not only available on Spotify, but on every single audio platform. And we do that by going to the settings and going to availability. Now what you see here on the RSS distribution, this RSS feed, if you copy, will now go everywhere possible. If you scroll down enough, you're going to see a list of all the destinations. You can click Amazon Music. It's going to give you a link to their portal. You click that portal and you would put your RSS feed in there, create an account for yourself on Amazon Music, on Apple Podcasts, on iHeartRadio, on Good Pods, on Castbox. And from there, you could just enter your RSS feed there, take ownership of your podcast, and it would begin after 24 hours, 48 hours, sometimes up to 2 weeks. It will then process your podcast and then begin serving that same RSS feed, which you got from Spotify, on all of those channels. Overcast does it automatically. So once your podcast is on Apple, it'll be picked up on Overcast, and several other destinations and podcast players are like that. So once the RSS feed is created, it will get served up and picked up automatically by the majority of podcast players. But then there are some exceptions, which are the ones listed here. That is it. You have now created your podcast. It's live. You're good to go. And you're good to begin publishing more. We can do a whole video about how to optimize, how to get more listeners. You can look back at my back catalog. I did talk a lot about how to get more listeners for your show. So definitely check those out. And now that it's on YouTube, you can then begin to get views and get watch time. The longer people spend on your channel, the more you're going to build up that watch time. And that watch time is going to count up to the 4,000 watch hours, which you need to qualify for monetization. So in no time, as you continue to put out your podcast episodes, you'll be fully monetized and you'll begin to get paid for your podcast being something that people listen to on a regular basis. So not only will you be able to get clients from your show, you'll also not be able to get revenue from ads being placed on your show by YouTube. It's a great big world out there. So I hope you got a lot from that. Definitely, if there are questions I didn't answer, leave the questions down below and I'll definitely answer them or make a future video about it. And as always, take care.